Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon at one of our regularly scheduled open forums. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you a woman who's already leaving her mark on Augusta and the community, and that is Dr. Shirley Kennedy, who is our interim president at Augusta State University. She is a storied and successful president of major universities, and so we are delighted to have her with us as we complete this consolidation initial phase. Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here with you. I will tell you, it is a pleasure to be in Augusta and at Augusta State University.
Different
there you
ASU.
go. And to be at GHSU. People here are wonderful. They care about this place. They're smart, they're energetic, and I will tell you, my life has not been boring. So thank you so much for your acceptance of me, and I look forward during the time I'm here, which will be till January, to working together collaboratively to make sure that this consolidation is as good as it can be. Thank you.
And now in just a few moments, I'll turn it over to the presidents to begin their opening remarks, and also then, as you will recall, have an open session, because that is the point of this afternoon's session. Just for a few of you, many of you are old hands at this and have been with us through many of these fora, but if not, please, these sort of rules of the road, we will open it for questions. If you would come to the microphones, if you could, so that everyone could hear it. It is being streamed elsewhere, so that will help us in that regard. Also, if you would, because we expect there'll be a number of questions, if you would limit yours to one and then let others have their chance to ask questions as well, we'd appreciate it very much. And I will moderate throughout as needed. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. and our president, Ricardo Aziz.
Thank you for being here. As you know, we took a month off in the summer, but we do have regular forums. We always hold one here and one at ASU. These are consolidation forums. You know that I have other forums really to discuss issues relating to particular campus or particular initiatives. And so we're glad that you're here. Sometimes it waxes and wanes, but lots of interest today. That's great. Let me start out by addressing an issue that's been a lot in the community, in the circulation, and some of you, if you've been already at the ASU campus, you've already heard my discussion, but I'd like to share that with you. And that has to do with the whole naming process for consolidation, for the consolidated new university. So let me start out with a few things so that I'd like to position and describe to you how this works and how it worked. The first thing is we had to set a vision, right? So the vision is set by the Board of Regents, by the Chancellor, about what this consolidation will lead to. And it is very, very clear that the Board of Regents and the Chancellor and the Governor and everybody else, that everybody in the community really is excited about building a statewide entity that is going to have world-class and global impact. Certainly will have excellence in the health sciences, but it will have excellence well beyond the health sciences. There is no value to consolidation if at the end of the day we do not build the other programs that are non-health science, because that is the value of consolidation. So we will be doing that. And that was the vision, right? A statewide entity with global and national impact. The second thing we had to deal with is obviously understand what the major challenges that are facing us. And there are a lot of challenges. The issues regarding state budget, we continue to receive cuts. For example, GHSU has lost about 28% of its state appropriations in a 4-year period of time, almost $50 million. That's actually hard to keep the wheels on, much less to manage into a growth environment. But that is what we are dealing with. We have issues regarding student completion, graduation rates, particularly among freshmen. That's ASU campus, but again, that is an issue that we need to serve our students in a way that positively really means that they will succeed if degree completion is success. We have issues related to philanthropy and the lack of in many areas, although that has been thankfully surfacing. We have issues related to changing in the economic and the healthcare environment. There is a new normal. We're not going back to the good old times. I mean, if we're going to sit around and say, you know what, we're going to wait this recession out and we're going to be back in the 1970s, it doesn't happen. We're not there. We won't be there. We won't be there ever again in our lifetime because the world has changed. So understanding that we had a vision, we have a number of challenges that we needed to address, and a lot of good things, of course, lots of strengths in our community today. We have strengths certainly at ASU, and a number of good programs around education, around the STEM areas, around certainly our golf and our sports teams, and here at GHSU, certainly around a number of areas of research and clinical excellence. Lots of good things that we could leverage. And so then we began a process, right, that we had to give a name to this new you, right? You know, frankly, new you sounded to be the best name for me, and I tried to propose it, but it didn't quite go over very well. But again, new you is what we needed to name, and we needed to name it because it is part of the consolidation process. By October, we need to have a name. So the process started with the appointment of a consolidated, and again, this really applies to a large number of the issues, but it started with the process of the chancellor appointing a consolidated work group. There's about 20 to 25 people from the community, from the universities, and about equally appointed, not about, equally appointed between ASU and GHSU, because at the end of the day, one of the other principles that we wanted to follow was that this was a consolidation. This was a combination of two universities to create a new university, not an old university, not the same old university. Nobody was taking over anybody. There are differences in sizes and in budgets and in faculty and in students. We know that. But at the end of the day, we're working really hard to make sure that it is an equitable process. We create a new university. So understanding that we were going to create a new university, we could not actually have the name of the old university, right? It isn't GHSU absorbing ASU, and so we'll just call it GHSU and keep going. It isn't Augusta State University absorbing GHSU, and then we keep the name going. So a new name was called for, and the Consolidated Work Group appointed a CAT, a Consolidated Action Team. That's a group of administrators from both institutions that then oversee about 75 sub-teams, what we call work teams. Because we have to dissect this process down to the last thing, whether it's student success, research success, faculty success and satisfaction, housing, facilities, you name it. You have a committee of shared people that are working on the topic. One of those work teams is the branding team. It's a team that was tasked with the unfortunate task of coming up with a name, with a series of names, some options, because we needed to give 3 names to the regions. And so they worked hard through it. They came out with a series of 6 names and, that really weren't very popular. Remember, they started out with 1,200 or so names called from lots of sources, individual recommendations, Augusta Chronicle, people email lists and so on and so forth. 1,200 names. They whittled those down to about 20 or 30 names that they could sort of work with. They began to shorten that list. And again, they got some reaction to the list. It wasn't very positive, wasn't very negative. And again, we also did a number of testing in the external market. Now that's new for us. Most of the other consolidations didn't do that because their vision wasn't so much about transforming the university into a state and national entity, right? They were more of a local community or a local higher education entity. Now, the external data isn't the only thing that was used to make a decision. It is true that if the external data showed that the name was probably very bad on a national basis, we probably weren't going to proceed there. But as long as it was neutral or positive, it was a name that we could entertain within whatever the limitations. So the work team worked very hard and presented a series of different names on 3 sets of occasions to the Consolidated Work Group. And, to be fair, the Consolidated Work Group made decisions, didn't like this, didn't like that, sent back, asked the team to make more work, to work harder, and so on and so forth. And at the end of that process, the work team produced 3 names for the Consolidated Work Group to actually agree or disagree or change. The Consolidated Work Group decided or agreed that those 3 names were names that could be forwarded to the Board of Regents because we could live with any of those 3 names. And that's the key. We did not and could not predict what the vote was going to be. But we had to have 3 names that we could live with. You never put a choice forward that you're not willing to accept. So the three names came forward: University of Augusta, Georgia Arts and Sciences University, and Georgia Regents University. Okay? And that's the names. Now, at this point is where some of the discussion in the community starts, which is, once you submit the names, what is the role of the president and chairman of the Consolidated Work Group? Because that's my job. Well, I'm going to tell you that my job is always and never to allow my bosses to be uninformed and to always keep them informed all the time. I meet with the regents regularly, once, twice, 3 times a year. That's how they've been able to keep up with the processes that we're doing, and sometimes around multiple subjects, whether it's the Blue Cross Blue Shield issues, or whether it's the buildings that we need to build, or whether it's the integration, or whether it's consolidation, or whether it's naming, or whatever issue is at the forefront. My job, like your job should be, to make sure that your bosses are informed. So once we had the 3 short list of names, I met, or called, because really they live all over the state, with the regents and said, these are the 3 names. You need to know why they were chosen, what is the background, and this is the positives, the pros and cons for each of the names. The pros and cons that I talked to them are the ones in my blog, so there's not a lot of mystery about what I said and what I went. And I said, these are the things. The issue of national branding, which has been brought up a lot, is not an issue because we never forwarded names. The Consolidated Work Group did not forward names that did not have some sort of positive branding, either neutral, which means we could change the actual perception of people, or positive. We didn't want to include any name that had negative national branding because that would have been an uphill battle. So that is the issue and how it evolved. But it is my job to make sure that the regents aren't surprised. Now, there's much talk about how much I influenced or not the regents, and I will tell you that at the end of the day, the regents do their own decision making. If you follow the regents as long as I have, or many of you have followed them longer, they will make their own decisions. My job is to provide that information, because that is what I'm supposed to do. It's not secret, it's not nothing, it is what my job is. So there seems to be a lot of confusion around that role. The regents made a decision. They had to decide on a name. They made their decisions based on rationale that I'm sure I share with them, rationale that others share with them, rationales that they heard from the communities, rationales that they spoke about among themselves. But to think that the regents make a decision because the president suggests one thing or another is really to not understand the process of the regents and to undervalue what they are contributing to ourselves. At the end of the day, only one name was going to be chosen. It didn't matter which one, some group of individuals would be disaffected. And so we have a group of individuals that are disaffected. I respect that. I understand the angst. The angst, as you know, in general, in my opinion, centers around 2 things. Lots of things have changed in the last 24 months. We've had a tremendous amount of catching up to do as an enterprise, as a university. We have had to really do things that should have been done over a 20 or 30-year period of time, but we did not have that time. We did not have that luxury. And so when you change things, change is painful. I get it. We know it. My team understands it. We also understand that people value their community, and that is a tremendous force and energy. We get that too. But I will tell you that the regents removed every city name from every consolidated institution across the enterprises. If they're regional, right, they became Middle Georgia or some other kind of name. But the regions were creating larger universities to serve larger regions. And for us, we're so fortunate because they were creating a statewide entity with a national impact. The only one of the consolidations that actually has that mandate. But one name was going to be chosen. It was. And that's all I can say about that. They made their decision. So that's the issue that I wanted to share with you, because there is so much innuendo and so much rumor that it's unfortunate because we're wasting a tremendous amount of energy on something that, while is important, it is not the hard work we got to do moving forward. The hard work is getting these two universities to work together and create the great American university that we need to do in Augusta, not somewhere else. So anyway, that's my little story. I just want to make sure that we begin from that platform. And at this point, I think Dr. Kinney and I are ready to answer as many questions as we can in this short period of time. No, we got questions here, but I'd rather you all stand up and ask questions. You're getting there. We'll get there.
Okay.
You must
Catherine
have
Davis,
surgery
Georgia
because that's
Prevention
not.
Institute, and part of the new Institute for Public and Preventive Health. I'm curious what the plans are with this consolidation progressing with Georgia Regents University about clinical research infrastructure, and specifically with our union with ASU, whether PhD programs are in the works and how quickly in areas that would be particularly valuable for clinical research, such as clinical psychology, health psychology, and kinesiology.
Fabulous question. I'm going to let Dr. Kinney begin, and then I'll try to add something.
Well, let me say there is no way we can become a comprehensive and certainly not a research university, excuse me, unless there are significant PhD programs and research programs in the academic programs as opposed to the health sciences side. It doesn't work. So absolutely, if we are going to reach our goals, there must be that building of serious research programs, serious doctoral programs in the STEM subjects, but across the board at the Somerville campus. It's not going to happen tomorrow because it takes a lot of money to make it happen, a lot of money. And at this point, you know, the state of Georgia is saying, yes, we want this, but I haven't seen the dollars yet. And so I think we have to begin to build toward that. And I think everything we do from here on must be toward that goal, or the whole enterprise fails.
So I'm going to add that that is exactly the goal. The consolidation will fail if we do not grow the non-health sciences portion. End of story. That is my commitment. That is the commitment of my team. That is the commitment actually of the Board of Regents and so on. This is actually about growing a bigger university, not creating an overgrown health sciences university, because you know what? We're already pretty big. You can't really grow much greater. But we need to create those synergies between pipeline programs for students and synergies between the professors that teach the undergraduate and the new graduate programs in our own synergies. Lots of synergies there. The key will be resources, which is why we actually have to have, in many ways, make sure that the state never forgets that we are a statewide entity regardless of where we are based. That the philanthropists across the state never forget that we are a statewide entity no matter where we're based. That the federal government never forgets that we are a statewide entity no matter where we are, because that's how we're going to get those resources. In the beginning, we're going to be putting in resources in a very strategic manner. We're not going to be able to grow everything at every time, but we are going to do that, because that is key to leveraging the success and the synergy of our new institution. Thank you for asking. Wow. Okay, thanks, everybody. Yeah. All right, so let me...
You all are very efficient.
Well, I mean, all right. It wasn't like this at ASU's campus this morning, although we do have some ASU folk here, so I appreciate it. I have questions, lots of questions here, so, but okay.
Hi, Nathan Deal has proposed a very large cut to higher education and to public health in the following budget year, and an equivalent amount of money would be raised by taxing cigarettes an additional $1, pretty much exactly what he wants to cut. Who in the state is going to be the champion for higher education and public health? We already suffer greatly in both areas, and if our governor thinks that's the best way to, I don't know, keep people smoking cigarettes, if you're not, you know, very intelligent and your health is poor, let's smoke up. You know, rather than raise that dollar tax, who is going to step into that role for us? Thank you.
Well, I think we have a role to play. All of you have a role to play. As you know, we created an Institute for Public and Preventive Health, the first one that we've created really at this university ever, right? And this is a major investment, actually an investment that has chancellor support, because some of the revenue to begin to actually generate that Institute for Public and Preventive Health came from the chancellor and the Board of Regents. So they've invested in that because they do want us to lead into the arena of public health. For those of you who do not know what we're speaking about, Georgia has among the lowest public health records of any state in the union. We're 40th out of 50 states. There are 82 counties in the state of Georgia that have mortality rates that are equal to the third world. The same as Gaza Strip, the same as Dominican Republic, etc. So we are, in many parts, a third world country. So you're absolutely right. Now, we are going to serve as advocates of that. As the statewide entity to dealing with health and, of course, public health, we're going to be able to begin to have a better dialogue with greater authority with the people in the know and the people who actually command the budgets to say, we think this is important, please pay attention to it. But to be fair to the governor, he has begun to invest in creating a separate Department of Public Health within the administration, beginning to invest in units like ourselves. So hopefully we'll do better. But very critical. We can't forget the public health of our citizens. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm an ASU student. I've been there for the last 2 years, got another 2.5 years ago. And one of the big problems that I've had since I'm a father of two very young children is the fact that trying to schedule my classes around their school time. And ASU currently does not have childcare facilities. Is it possible, after the consolidation has been done in the future, would a childcare facility be created on this new campus?
It would be, it certainly would be needed. I don't know the situation. I'm learning from you, but it's something I will certainly look into because I think it's very, very important. And, it's a matter, obviously, of how many students we have with need and the hours that they have need. But it is indeed important, and I will get on the case.
So I think you said two things that are important. One is the hours, right? So we are, and Dr. Kinney is beginning to examine that. I mean, are we providing the sufficient flexibility, particularly around core curriculum and other important courses for the working parent, right? Because again, it's not just having kids and not kids. Sometimes it's the evening, sometimes actually the middle of the day. We have to examine that and understand that better because we do want to provide greater education, greater value to our community as well as attract students from outside. The second thing has to do with child care. So we, GHSU, have a child care unit. It's not in a great facility. We are now beginning to explore how to actually improve that facility and perhaps even expand that offering, not just to our employees and our staff, but actually to students across the university. That's what we want to do. That is the power of synergy. So at least on this campus, we have recognized that need some time ago. We have an okay facility. The program is really good. The facility lacks, like many other things, and we're going to be working on that. And I was going to put my facility guy on the spot, but I'm going to spare you the saying things like that. There we go. He's going to stand up.
There is actually one of the work teams is working on that very issue. We're doing a lot of student quality of life assessments right now on both campuses, looking at housing and dining and student recreation and student union. This is part of those studies. So this is something that is being looked at, and there is a team actually working on that does include child care.
So I will say something that it's may not be all favorite to people, particularly at GHSU. But we, meaning GHSU, have never really worried about the student life issue. You know what? We were it. We're a great value. They want to go to medical school. They want to go to dental school. You know what? We're it. We can't continue with that mindset. We have to understand that we have and are a university, and it's about students. And we have to create a better environment both in the city of Augusta, and you've heard me talk about that, we don't have to go down there, and in the university. And that's what we're doing. But we need to understand first, what the issues are and who needs them and so on. And that's why we're beginning to do these studies. And hopefully, the next 5 or 6 months, we'll have a better idea of what things we need. But we do need to understand that we need to become a student-centered, student-friendly university and a student-centered, student-friendly city. Other questions? All right, I'm going to flip some of these things here. Was the decision not to include Augusta in the name done before any of this started? The answer is no. In fact, those of you who went with me to the Board of Regents, we had no clue. We were in the car trying to figure out if we knew what was going to happen, because we didn't know. Because that's the whole excitement of the process. Has a decision been made on the hospital? We would like for the health system, which is a separate series of 501c3, it's not the same corporation. I think all of you understand that. But we are aligned, we're in partnership, our destinies are tied together to have a similar name to the university, right? So we are Georgia Regents University. We might be Georgia Regents Health System. But there is no decision, and I should be very careful to say they have their own board, and they will make a decision. And so now, as chairman of that board, I don't know yet. We haven't really looked at it. Okay, thank you. Plans for housing and parking on ASU campus. I mean, I think many of you have heard that really we want to create a student-friendly campus in Somerville. We're going to be respectful of our neighbors, work with within the architectural context. It's a beautiful campus, a beautiful area of the city. We are going to preserve it. But at the end of the day, we got to have students who want to be there. That's a signature campus. So we're looking at lots of things. No decisions have been made. There are like 15 different drawings that people have done. So again, we're not there yet. Hopefully, Phil, when are we going to have some idea? So the studies have to be completed, which really means a large number. Traffic patterns, student needs, enrollment assessments, what kind of program. We just don't have the data, but at some point it will be, hopefully sooner than later. We need it, as Dr. Kinney always reminds me, right? We needs wins, and you may want to say something about that.
Well, I think you just said it, but I think I said it earlier, but it's absolutely important that we begin to see that this dream can become a reality, and we begin to see it by things happening that make us understand we're headed that direction. It's very exciting, but we can plan and plan and plan, and unless we begin to see that, yes, the state buys into this, yes, they're behind us with dollars, then, it can't happen.
So Dr. Kinney, in her privileged position, has been telling our leaders what she thinks about funding for the universities, things that we don't always have the opportunity to say with the naked truth. And I will stop at that point.
I am Johnny One Note on this subject.
But
yes, there's a question here.
Yes. I'm just curious, we all are stumbling over what to call ourselves, if you will, at the different sites. And so the new name is Georgia Regents University, but that's everywhere, right? So what are we calling what used to be ASU? What are we calling here? What are we calling there and everywhere else? Is there going to be a different name?
I'm looking at my team down here, but David, do you want to respond to that? Do you want me to respond? What would you like me to do? So I
don't want to keep
stand
calling
up, David.
it ASU
Stand up.
and GHSU,
So
right?
David Braun is our new vice president for communication and marketing for the entire enterprise, GHSU and health system. So David has been hired, and we said, hi, you're in charge of communication and marketing. Come on in the week, and then we'll drop you behind the enemy lines with Firestorm in the middle of this. And so the poor man has been here a week, and he hasn't unpacked his bag, so you need to convince him that we're not really always what he perceives. But he's been working on this question.
This is a great question, and it's an important question, and it's something that we have not made a decision about yet, and we need to get some input on it. And right now, we're not making any assumptions about what those will be, whether those will be geographic names for those sites or not. And it's something that's going to take a little bit more time for us to think about, to look at all the different physical locations in Augusta and what they should be called. So you have to have a little more patience about that, because it's not something that we can do very quickly. It's something that we need approval from. It's something that we need some input from, or input for.
So this is the kind of stuff that right now I speak of Somerville and the Wrightsboro and so on, so it's a mix of streets and stuff. We need to figure out what we're going to do that. But we do need input, Remember, despite everything we say, we generally want input on things. We just need to decide that. But it's a good question, because I have the same problem. Because we don't want to speak about ASU and GHSU starting in January, right? We don't want to say, I'm going up to the ASU. What does that mean? Or I'm going down to GHSU. What does that mean? So we'll have to have our language correct. Good point. Yes, sir.
All right, sorry, I'm still pretty confused. I mean, I just want to know what the logical thought process was behind going from Medical College of Georgia to the Georgia Health Sciences University and then changing the name again. To me, the logical thing would have been to just go from the Medical College of Georgia to the new merger name now, which is Georgia Regents University. I mean, you're saying that
what was the reasoning and how did it happen and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So I can summarize it briefly. I'm going to let Dr. Kinney answer this question. No, I'm just being mean to Dr. Kinney. So let me be very clear, and most of you all lived through this. But so in the early part of 2010, with the new administration, myself and a number of other people, and actually it had been already pretty pervasive, we realized that actually Medical College of Georgia, which was a great historic name and we valued it tremendously, when you did and you tested this throughout the state and the nation, they only thought about the medical school, because actually it's what it says, right? Medical College of Georgia. And so people like dentists and people like allied health scientists and all sorts of other things really did not have an identity. And across the nation, we actually were confused, because we did a market survey around the nation from our academic peers, and literally 2/3 of them thought that we were a standalone medical school, and half of them thought we were a private medical school. Of course, the other half had never heard of us. So there was a change at that point then. And we thought we're done. We're done. Georgia Health Sciences University is the university. Medical College of Georgia is the medical school, because that's really what everybody thought about. And, of course, we changed the college's name. And we thought we're done. And, this president thought, wow, gone. And then we have the consolidation. And that consolidation is something that was new, was certainly not on the plans, was not on the plan of this president. And at that point, we couldn't continue with the same name for the reason I said earlier. It's a consolidation of two universities. Each brings the strengths and weaknesses to the table. It's going to be a new university with a new name, and so hence we're here. So people ask me all the time, why are you changing the name again? Didn't you change? We didn't jump up and say, let's get a new name. We just couldn't say to our ASU colleagues, you know what, why don't you just, we'll all be GHSU and we're done. Or they couldn't really say to us, you know what, let's just be ASU and we're done. And that's why we're here. But good question.
Over there.
Thank you. I'm a medical student here, and I have a question for you, Dr. Aziz, and I suppose you as well, David, it might pertain to the marketing aspect, that inevitably in any kind of name change, there's going to be some blowback as people are unfamiliar with the new name, regardless of what the name is. So in the areas of perhaps future students, admissions, national funding organizations, research funding organizations, and national residency programs, are there any plans for reducing the potential problems that we might have with name recognition and national recognition and reputation?
That's an excellent question, because in fact, a lot of the hiring of a VP Communications, a greater, hopefully, effort in budget, although we're obviously struggling always with that, around branding is critical. Let me tell you why it's critical for those of you who are not in the seat. When our students graduate here, whether you're ASU or GHSU, whatever it is, you generally are going to get a job, further training somewhere else, or some sort of position that's going to require the person to say, pretty good school, okay? I mean, in my blog, I told you the story of Florida International University, right? Where many years ago, I remember a student wrote me a letter saying, got to do research in your lab, and I didn't even bother responding, because really I didn't really want to deal with an offshore kind of thing, and I just didn't do it. Sorry if anybody here came from an outside U.S. school, but and then, of course, I find out, 10 years later, that Florida International University is actually one of Florida's state universities with 50,000 students in the middle of Miami. How did I know? Because the name international made me think it was like somewhere else, like the Caribbean. So the point is, our students need to have value there, and that's going to require us to invest in our brand name. Now, we're going to give you lots of diplomas with different names, depending on which one you want to flip out at that time, or you can certainly, in the letters, we'll say previously known as MCG and GHSU. We get that. But we're going to have to spend time and resources as a university to market this nationally. So we are doing that. I mean, yesterday we put the finishing touches on a video and a booklet and so on and so forth that is going to go to all the medical schools around the nation, telling them about how great MCG is and how great our new university is going to be. And we're doing some of that, but the students deserve value because at the end of the day, you want that. Now, the value will be greater not immediately after you graduate, by the way, but it'll be 10 or 20 years from now, which is why this is an investment. The same goes for the faculty. You want to say, my tenure was at X, my tenure was at Y. When you recruit somebody, you want them to have instant recognition. Yeah, I know who you are. We've actually had greater success recruiting once we changed our name to Georgia Health Sciences University. Why? Because we didn't have to explain to anybody. It was the Georgia's Health Science University. Who's calling? Georgia's Health Science University. You know, it's going to change now, so we're going to have a whole big marketing upstream, and we don't need to get down that path. But the point is, you're absolutely right.
Katie Davis again. A few years back, actually when the parking opened at Kroger, I made a fuss about crosswalks on Walton Way because they were all sort of dysfunctional and dangerous, and the Department of Transportation declined to allow a crosswalk to be marked where there is, in fact, by law, an unmarked crosswalk. You may be familiar with Kitchen 1454. If you're not, I suggest you get familiar with it. It's a good place.
Somebody break that down.
But there's
no.
a curb cut
Okay.
at that intersection, and it is considered an unmarked crosswalk. It is beyond the distance set by law, and people cross there all the time. It's something that is really dangerous. I know accidents have happened there. I know people have gotten hurt there. So I wonder if you could get it on their agenda to mark the crosswalk.
So this is actually a good opportunity, and I always learn at these open forums. We are, in this setting, as a health sciences campus, whatever we call this campus, really in the middle of very heavy traffic, right? You've all heard the Laney Walker discussion and how we're going to help resolve it working with the community. But we have 15th Street, which is a state highway. We got Walton Way, which is the main thoroughfare into the city. These are big things for a lot of people. My biggest worry is not just Walton Way. I get these people coming across in wheelchairs from the VA trying to cross over the street in the middle of heavy traffic. I mean, it is a little bit. So if resources weren't a problem, overhead walkways, which most places have done, is a good solution. And having said that, with the monies, the T-SPLOS monies, and with Department of Transportation, I think this is a great opportunity to begin to say, let's make our walkways and our streets safer around this growing university. And I am, as you know, a great advocate of that. So it's a great idea. Phil's written it down. He says he's going to get it done in about 2 months. Come back and call him. But it is critical for not just our students and staff, but our patients too. So, thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned the branding committee. Who is this branding committee that you keep mentioning?
Well,
And
right now,
also,
I'm not sure that I want to say any names, but it is.
And
It actually is on the website, and you can just see the issue about consolidation, which has been a little bit sometimes I feel taken aback, and it is part of communicating in a large enterprise. It's all on the web. We have if you go to the websites of the institutions, it'll throw you to the link of the consolidated work group, and in there it's all the market studies and this. We've tried to be as transparent as possible. It is true, we did not mail a copy of this study to each and every citizen in Augusta and elsewhere. We just couldn't do that. We do want free access, and there are names there, but I don't know them off the top.
let me ask you another question. I know you said the Medical College of Georgia would not move to Athens. What about the School of Medicine? Now, can you guarantee the School of Medicine, now known as GRUSOM, gruesome? It will be called gruesome.
We don't actually have an
School of
SOM.
Medicine, which will be
SOM, you
gruesome.
just made that up. Actually, our medical school is MCG, Medical College of Georgia.
But will the School of Medicine stay in Augusta?
So the School of Medicine will continue to be called Medical College of Georgia, and as long as I am president, that will not happen. We will have, and we are the hub for the state, and we are the state's public medical school, and we will stay in Augusta.
Yeah, I understand that. I can see the scenario of the medical college being the umbrella and having the School of Nursing, the Allied Health, the dental school, and the funding to slowly start shifting. So it won't be long before, the physicians and the professors are paid higher in Athens. So, well, maybe we should just
So
go there.
all I can tell you, asked me to guarantee you something. Obviously, I'm only president for a certain determined period of time, and all I can tell you is that will not happen in any foreseeable future, if at all, because the governor has clearly stated, this is not because, I'm saying anything. Governor has clearly stated we will have one public medical school, and it will be in Athens. You can go look at them. No. Oh. No, it will be in Augusta, sorry. No, and you need to actually, whoa. You need to actually, because we need to hold our representatives to what they say. And they clearly have stated that. So that's a good point. Wow, is that a slip of the tongue or what? I think right here, yes.
So you are saying, as long as you are the president, there will not be a separate medical school at Athens?
You know what? I can't guarantee things that I'm not here for or I'm passed away or anything like that. Life is long. All I can tell you is there is zero plans today.
Here or at Athens?
Where are we today? No, we have to really understand what's being said by Governor Nathan Deal, what's being said by the Board of Regents, and what they are showing, not with words, but with action. They are investing in us to continue to grow us as the statewide hub for healthcare education across the state and in Augusta. We got campuses, a lot of places. This is the state's public medical school, the state's public nursing school, and so on and so forth. Although there's, graduate programs, there are more of those. But there is no movement afoot. There's no secret. I've heard from people saying that the renaming the consolidation of the university is somehow a plot to move the medical school to Athens. And I can't fathom how that would even remotely be the case. All I can tell you is the commitment of our officers, the commitment of our elected officials, the commitment of a number of people that matter today is clearly to build a strong medical school here. That's what this all investment is about. But when people say, can you guarantee forever and ever and ever, I can't even guarantee we're going to be on the map forever and ever and ever. That's not the issue. But today, that is not going to happen. And it won't happen in any foreseeable future, and there are no plans to do that. Does that make sense? How would you like me to say it? Because, I'm being diplomatic. At the end of the day, I can say, no, that won't happen, which is fine. Can't tell you 50 years from now.
Well, they wanted a medical school up there for a long time, and we are helping them. We're
So
helping
let
build
me-
a campus for them. And I guess the concern of many of us is that will ultimately be a separate medical school that we will be competing with.
As I said, that is my goal is to make this medical school, university, et cetera, as strong as possible. That's what this president is doing and his team is doing. But let me give you all a little bit of history because all of you know this. How many years was MCG the medical school for UGA? Anybody? Raise up a hand. Come on. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. 70 years. So for about 100 years, they've been trying to get their own medical school. I don't foresee that they're going to be able to do that in the next 20. Beyond that, I won't be here after 20 years. Okay? That's all I can say. Great. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say I'm not really a fan of the new name at all, but I also don't have any tomatoes to throw at you. What I want to make a point about is something that has sort of irritated me for a long time anyway. As we move forward into the future and with this new organization, I want to insist that we do not forget what our history is. I don't understand why at this hospital you come in here and you don't see pictures of like the old medical college building. You don't see like Walter Shepard's face and some of the other founding fathers of this organization. And I'm sure the same at ASU. And I don't think there's any way we can achieve any greatness if we abandon and ignore our past. So I want our history included in whatever we end up being in the future. Strongly recommended.
Absolutely.
An example is Mayo Clinic. When you go to the Mayo Clinic, you walk down those hallways and you are surrounded by history. As a patient, when you walk down those clinic halls, you feel like I'm here and someone knows what they're doing because I see all this history. We don't have that. And so please incorporate that in whatever you want to call us.
The answer to you is absolutely. You know, you have to understand that while I am one to say we should never drive into the future looking at the rearview mirror, we must honor our history. Now, I will tell you that we have a history project undergoing. In fact, our VP for marketing will be inheriting that. But since we've been here, we've begun to try to do that, identify where all the portraits are of our founding fathers, because they're all over the institution. We developed a video on the history of MCG, which, to be fair, was the first such video that had actually been created, period, in a long period of time. If you don't have a copy, we'll need to get you a copy of that video. We published a book with Dr. Ellison as the editor on the history of MCG, the first book that we actually published. The other one had been published by Athens. But the reality is we want to recognize our history. I said earlier today that we needed museums, right? And then, of course, somebody stood up and said ASU has a museum. Let me just tell you, I didn't want to say that, but I've been to the museum at ASU. It's okay. It's a small room. It's great. But it's not the history of where we've been. ASU has a tremendous history. Dr. Bloodworth is writing the updated history of ASU. We need to have museums, a place where people can say, you know, this is the trajectory. These are the people. It's a rich history. We cannot forget our history. We must do that. We have that. We're going to be investing in that. It's going to require a lot of effort because I will tell you the problem we're running into now is we are not able to find materials. The next project that I wanted to do last year to give out at inauguration was a pictorial history of the pictorial book on the history of MCG. We do not have enough photographs. The University Hospital seems to have a lot of our photographs in their book, but we don't have enough photographs. So we are going to have to work on that because we need to rescue and build on an 185-year history for GHSU and maybe even longer history, depending on how you trace it for ASU. Great question. Love it.
How is the consolidation anticipated to affect jobs, whether positive or negative?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part. Jobs?
Whether it be positive or negative. How is the consolidation anticipated to affect jobs?
Well, I don't know that I can answer that since I will no longer be president when the consolidation occurs.
So I was hoping she could do that. But so the answer to you is as follows. It's going to be it's going to be an answer that is fairly clear. We clearly are going to have to become more efficient because our budgets are getting cut. So all I can say is we're going to have to handle those budgetary cuts as we consolidate. Having said that, if we grow, we get more students. You know, we go from 6,500 undergraduate non-health science students to 10,000. You know what? That is going to create jobs. That's the whole point of this, right? As we grow and attract students from outside, as we grow our research programs, as we grow a number of things, that is how we employ more people. In the short term, we always have to deal with budgetary cuts. I mean, that's an issue that is a reality. But the point about this is nobody said to me, and I don't think that the regents have this intention at all, even by their signals that they're providing us, that said, we want you to consolidate and become smaller. They said, we want you to consolidate and become bigger, become the university for the rest of Georgia in your area. And that's going to mean growth. That's going to be jobs. But if we don't work together, if we don't come together, if we don't move over our differences, that's going to be stymied. But it's all about growth. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I don't know how much you can believe that's reported in the Augusta Chronicle, but how credible was that report that there was a threat or at least a suggestion of legal action by Regent University over the name? And if that does come to a head, who's paying for that, and how much are we willing to spend to fight for GRU?
That's a good question. So I haven't been reading the Augusta Chronicle for the last month or so, and probably won't be for a while. It's it's sort of getting to be a little bit of yellow media. But nevertheless, I will tell you that in any name you would have gotten, you would have had some argument. For example, Georgia Arts and Sciences University, that's really actually the name for most colleges, right? Most colleges have College of Art and Sciences. And it would have caused a lot of confusion because if you type in today, Georgia Arts and Sciences University, what do you get? You get the College of Arts and Sciences at UGA. So we would have had even internal challenges. There were names that we eliminated completely because they were like similar or duplicates. George Walton was a name that, we thought it was pretty cool, but, there's a George Walton College in South Georgia. So it's not unexpected that when you come to a name, people will say, well, it sounds familiar and so on and so forth. But the reality is, think about it. How many university names are more or less similar, right? I mean, look at Georgia. How many universities have Georgia and University in the name? So we will have to work on it. That is something that the University System of Georgia office, that's not an issue that relates to this president or the university, because at the end of the day, that's actually, as I said, the naming is not a decision by the president. It's a University System of Georgia issue, which I think they'll carry the bill. That's the answer to that part. But I don't really think that really will have legs in the long run because, in fact, we are different institutions, different missions, different places. Yeah, lots of names are similar, but not enough. But that's all that's all I can say. I'm not involved directly with that. Again, that's a University System of Georgia issue. It's a good question.
There are about 5 more minutes, so if you have a question, now is your time.
I have a question for Dr. Kinney, and that is,
Right?
what does she see for the future for us? Because this is an experienced president. This is a president who took her institution, Sonny at Stony Brook, to the AAU, that premier organization of universities in the country. So what do you see, our trajectory? Of course, it's a long one. But.
Well, I may have mentioned, I see it's important to have money to make it happen. At Stony Brook, one of the things we did that I think was important as we were built, Stony Brook's an interesting place because it started as a predominantly research institution, built the undergraduate program later really, and added the medical school after the university had established itself. So it's a totally different situation. But one of the things that I think made a difference in our trajectory was that we took over management of Brookhaven National Lab. And it seems to me that the opportunities that exist here with the Department of Energy, with the Savannah River National Lab, are an important part of what we could link into our agenda in the future. Other than that, I think, as I said before, to reach our goals, we absolutely have to build the doctoral and research programs at ASU, and that has not been an agenda in the past. So it's an enormous, enormous agenda. Very exciting one, I might say, but it's not going to happen overnight. I think that we have to take the funding we have and act strategically. I think we have to invest toward those directions, and I think there's some short-term things, and I hope I will be able to get started in the short time that I am here. But in order to reach that kind of national eminence, which I know everybody in the room is seeking, you really have to build, you have to get the investment, you have to get investment both internally and externally, and you have to invest wisely with that goal in mind. So it's not quick, it's very important, and I would love to see it reach the full fruition that is possible here. And I just want to say, as an aside, that I'm very honored to have the small part I have played in this attempt to ascend in the future. And then I want to call on this gentleman.
Thank you. My name is Gus Ederskew. Whoa. I'm a professor associate professor emeritus from MCG days, and going back to 1978. And in that time, I've served in various committees and different functions besides the academic and research support roles I had. I've heard today several references from Dr. Aziz about the role of history, and yet I have a sense that history's role has not been taken into account of what it could have taught. For example, one of the committees I was on talked about changing the name from MCG to something else back in either the late 70s or early 80s. And at least at that point in time, the perception or reality, who knows, was that the medical communities, the physicians that came from here, would be very opposed to changing that name. They had a lot invested in it. It would be a tough nut to crack to change it. That doesn't seem to have been factored in by anyone. And it would seem, Dr. Aziz, as the leader of this institution, that should have fallen to you to inform the Board of Regents, however it would take to be done, that is an important consideration. It seems like even though you've mentioned the importance of knowing our history, you are not taking advantage of what is there. Which leads me to the other thing. As you've been talking, I've thought of other suggestions and places where there could be improvement. Why not have some kind of an ongoing forum open to the public and to graduates and to former faculty and staff? What things need to be changed, updated, improved, that you all could use to take us in some additional directions that would be better accepted than GRU or Georgia Regents University is? Why not do something proactively as you can? And I recognize you don't change the name, you don't make the name, but yet there needs to be awareness presented from someone in leadership here that would say, we are looking to expand the financial support, the research funding support, which has been much more improved from when I first got here. Over the years, it became a criteria. You wanted to advance, you produced income-producing research. Now, I know I'm long-winded. I'm
Okay,
faculty,
sorry.
I'm long-winded. Okay. But we need to take advantage of these things to the betterment of the institution to get a name that would give us recognition and support throughout the country, throughout the local community as well, definitely within the state, that would encourage getting those types of financial revenues, and that everyone could support better than Georgia Regents University.
So I appreciate your comments. Let me start out by saying, you know, at the end of the day, we actually listen to history. In fact, the history you just counted is something that I understand very well. We did realize we needed to make a change. We did realize that some people would be unhappy. So we did, when we changed the name MCG, was to actually, again, make sure that the medical school remained the Medical College of Georgia. But you're right, we actually learned a tremendous amount from previous failed efforts of previous presidents. By the way, 4 presidents tried to change the name, and for A or B or C never did until when we got here, people did not know who we were. And you have to be an active faculty in here to understand how little, actually at this point, people understood what we had. We had the greatest thing here. We are the state's academic health center. You go to Athens, they didn't know. You go to Dothan, Alabama, you didn't know. You go to Albany, they can forget it. The point really has to do with, we learned a tremendous amount, in fact, from looking at history. I am a studious student of history. That doesn't mean I'm going to repeat history. I'm not driving with my rearview mirror, but I learned a tremendous amount. In fact, the way we were able to succeed was actually learning the lessons of the history and the previous failed attempts. A fantastic suggestion. Now let me go to the other side, because that is a very good suggestion. We need to engage our alumni, our community, and so on in this, and we have multiple forums around that. We meet with our alumni, we ask questions about it, but we need to do this now in a much more concerted effort, because, in fact, you're absolutely right. They are our spokesmen. They are the people with ideas. They are individuals that we value. So that's going to get better. But I will simply say to you that again, the second name change, while I may have, with my team, said, you know, it's time to change the name from MCG to GHSU so that people know who we are. Because I can tell you, I was out there and we didn't know who we were. The name change today is happening because of the consolidation. We have to do it. It isn't something we choose to do. Okay? It has to happen. But again, your points are very good, but we actually value history significantly. Yes, ma'am.
I do agree with you that you're not going to please everybody about a name change. But what I don't understand is that you have asked for a lot of information from a lot of people around, but for the most part, I think they've fallen on deaf ears because what they chose, Regents University, has not even come close to being the top choice of the people, the voices that have been screaming at y'all for some time. So I guess you've, on several occasions today, have asked for more information from us and more suggestions. But, you know, it's kind of like, what are you going to do with them? Because we don't feel like you did anything with them the first time.
Well, that's a good thought, but I will tell you that at the end of the day, we, in the transformation through GHSU and otherwise, we've been listening all the time. There are multiple steps of transformation. At the end of the day, the Regents chose a name. But I will simply tell you that, unfortunately, if they chose anything else but what the popular vote would have been in the region, we would have still been at odds. And so the answer to you is, we did listen. That was part of the reason that came into the menu that we sent to them. And as I said before, and I'm not simply, you know, just sort of dispensing responsibilities, but they have to choose one name. There are a lot of things we listen, we get input, but at the end of the day, not everything we get input, we end up being able to actually do what the input is. I mean, because the input comes from multiple different sources. I can show you a huge amount of information saying to me, we didn't want the University of Augusta, right? We were a health sciences campus, so why can't we call it Georgia Medical something, or something else? You know, that's the voice that we haven't heard. But at the end of the day, nobody was going to be happy. Because at the end of the day, the Regents had to make a decision. And I respect people's angst, and I respect people's feeling that they weren't heard, but at the end of the day, the problem is that we were sort of multiple choices. And there are a lot of people in this audience today that feel that medical should be included, or health should have been included. And all I can say is, it wasn't.
I had a couple of questions. The first one was, it seems like I understand that we needed a name change with the merger, but it seems like we had an opportunity to give ourselves a name that would really provide some more recognition, or something that, I mean, you said you were okay with any name that we could live with, or that wasn't necessarily negative. I don't understand why we didn't shoot higher for a name that was more positively recognized by everyone in the community. Because to me, it seems like it was overwhelmingly negatively taken by everyone. That was the first question. Second question was, if you say you want to keep the Medical College of Georgia known as the Medical College of Georgia, I don't understand why I have to pay extra money to get a diploma that says Medical College of Georgia instead of GRU.
So let me answer the second question first. The official university name is whatever the university's official name is with SACS. That is the one that we will give you a diploma at no cost. We will be able to print different diplomas in different settings at a fee, and you're absolutely correct. Because again, not everybody wants it. It's a special thing. It's actually more of a memorabilia. It's not the official certificate. It doesn't have value as an official certificate. You have to understand that.
If everybody wants the MCG diploma, do we still have to pay extra?
So if you want an MCG diploma, that is correct. But remember, you're going to have MCG in your diploma anyway. It's going to say, graduated from the Medical College of Georgia at Georgia Health Sciences University. Again, if you graduate in the next short time or whatever it is after. But you will have that, and it'll be in your diploma. You want just one that has the old rubric of what was used before, then that's a memorabilia, and we can certainly provide it at a cost. Now, let me go to the first one. You know, I'm not going to second-guess the branding team's effort, and I'm not going to actually throw them under the bus. They did an extraordinary amount of work to come up with that short list of names. I mean, as I said before, I've actually never met with a branding team. Don't really actually can tell you the names off the top of my head, can tell you the people who are certainly, you know, the leads. You can see that on the website. But they did a tremendous amount of work. I mean, I think we're undervaluing how hard this process was. To come down from 1,200 names to 3 names of which we could all live with no matter what happened. And then, of course, there was one choice. But I'm not going to second-guess them. And I'm not, and the consolidated work group did not also want to do the same thing. Because at the end of the day, it was a process. When you delegate a process, you say, come up with the best you can, and we'll do it as an iterative process. You have to respect that. It's not about all of a sudden saying, you know what, I think we want some other name. My wife, delightful as she is, had 16,000 names, and I finally told her I don't want to hear anymore because A, I'm not deciding on the name directly, B, put them in the website like everybody else. But it was really difficult. And you're feeling the difficulty today. This is a tough, tough decision. I wish we could have had, we could have pulled Harvard University off or something, but somehow it wouldn't have really worked. But thank you for your question. And we are past the time, so thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your coming.